Hey, and here we are. Another brand new spanking episode of Duncan and Bo Come Correct. This time we are calling this Duncan and Bo slash fiction
Yes.
on account of all the gay porn that implies.
Yep. That has been written about us both. So
Yeah, a number of times have in our journeys through cinema, people are like, "Look, I don't know if you guys were aware of this or not, but there is a tremendous amount of gay pornography
yes.
dedicated
Yep.
to the two of you."
Yes.
And first of all, I appreciate it. That's nice,
I mean,
you know.
anytime. Your
Yeah,
cat's just like clever girl. The like, yeah. Anytime anyone wants to write anything, either positive or negative about us, that's great. So
yeah. I like to be talked to and referred to.
yes.
Sorry, intrusion by Tully, who decided it was time for him to go on the air.
Yeah. Why not?
You know
I
that.
mean, at least he did a respectful thing and didn't show his asshole, which most cats do when there's a camera about. So,
I mean, give it time, Lowenstein. So we've made it all the way to episode 2
you
of
make it sound like there's a long journey behind that. We've still got six to go.
yeah. Well, I mean, we do, and yeah, it's. Yeah, all right. Before we get into slasher, let's get this part out of the way. This
Yeah,
week they announced that there is going to be a slasher season 5,
yeah.
and have
I
we
called it,
discussed it?
Bo.
Yeah.
I Babe Ruthed it. I pointed to the rafters and said, "Right there, ladies and gents." Get like you were like, and then guess what else they renewed as well while they were at it?
What?
Creep
Oh,
Show.
what did they renew?
Creep Show
Oh,
has
that's
been
right, right,
renewed
right,
for a
right.
fourth season. The third season has been critically panned. Like, but they're like, let's just keep doing them
I
because
mean,
I get that.
if people are watching it, you
Well,
know.
this is the thing. This is how it's interesting because there's a lot of people moan about like the Netflix model. Like Netflix will do one season of something and be like, the first, the first 2 weeks numbers are not where we thought they were going to be, so it's getting the chop. People are like, well, 2 weeks isn't enough time. Kind of is like by streaming standards nowadays because of the amount of content that comes out. Like if you're not essentially on board with something straight away when it comes out, that weekend or that first week, it's lost the following week because Netflix is going to keep putting stuff out. Amazon Prime's got stuff, Hulu, Shudder. All these companies are doing the same thing. Shudder, however, is maybe the exception to the rule because for their point of view, because of their viewership, they can afford to drop a TV show that takes a month, 2 months to land because they're not producing a huge amount of original content. It's mostly, maybe 4 new titles a month and lots of old shit. So that new stuff is always going to relatively trend quite well. And I think nowadays, if you are subscribed to Shudder, I don't see people. I'd love to see the numbers. I can't see people canceling the Shudder subscription. It doesn't cost a lot. And it's that thing where on a Saturday night, if you want to watch something trashy or a bit highbrow or anything kind of horror related, it's kind of got your back covered, so you're fine there. So I get the feeling that like a creep show is always going to get renewed because, like you mentioned the last time, brand name is brand recognition. The creep show brand is just, is going to get people checking it out. You don't have to follow. You can jump in at any point on that. You can watch them in any order. It doesn't really matter. The slasher thing, though, that's the bit that confuses me because I just can't imagine that it was a huge pull for them. I might be wrong. I might be the asshole here, but I genuinely can't imagine that slasher moving to Shudder generated tons of people subscribing.
I don't know that if it's people subscribing because of Shudder, but I think
Mm.
it's people who have Shudder that are watching it.
Why?
I
Why?
mean, look, hey,
Why? God damn it!
that's the mystery I think we're ultimately trying to solve.
Yeah.
between ourselves.
Your cat is just having a ball today. It's just like that. It's just like, what's that? Want to record, Bo? No,
Man,
you don't.
he is all right. Not to get into pet stories, but he ended up dying, Duncan, and I buried him in the Micmac cemetery. And ever since then, he's been a real jerk. It smells weird.
Yep.
No,
Did you bury him up the road?
the soil of a man's cat, Estonia, Lewis. Um, no, as you know, not long ago, I got a dog,
Yes.
and so there has
Who
been.
is perfectly well behaved in the background.
Yeah, like other people can't really see this on. You could people on the stream can see the very
Yeah.
corner of his crate. But yeah, he is just adorably curled up with his stuffed animal, sleeping
Yep.
like an angel.
Mm-hmm.
And but there has been a bit of a jostling for position in the
Yeah.
household as far as attention goes, because that is finite.
Mm-hmm.
And so the cat has become more insistent when he decides it is time that he is to be pet.
Yeah.
There is no stopping it. Short of again burying him in the Micmac burial ground.
So in terms of slasher though, this is the first one where they're actively like doing a period piece.
Yeah.
Which like to me, I think slasher struggles to set things in, normal time with language and dialogue that people actively speak, that it gives me great concern that we're doing a kind of riff on Jack the Ripper, which has been, excuse the pun, done to death. And two, we're doing it's not, he's kind of Robin Hood Jack the Ripper. From what I've read, he doesn't kill prostitutes, he kills wealthy people.
Yeah, I mean, look, Aaron Martin is nothing if not topical. And this whole eat the rich idea, which would have been relevant, 8 to 15 years ago.
Oh, yeah,
he's
yeah.
getting
Yeah.
around to now.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, so the question I think people would ask is, are we ultimately going to do that season? Maybe we're still debating.
It's a while away. Yeah, it's a while away. We're gonna do Pink Panther after this, and that's
100%.
a series of movies, and that's gonna keep us going for a good couple of months, and then we should have time to do something else. Which I believe it will be Bo's pick at that point. And Bo brings something, and we'll get through that, and then we'll see when it's coming out. It's going to be on Shudder. We both have Shudder, so there's no issue about getting access to it. It's just the will to do that. Maybe if we've been riding high, watching really good quality stuff, we want to slum it again. Because you do get more interesting, fun conversations when you're actively pointing out the flaws in something that's been made. But at the same time, though, this has been, by the time we finish, it'll be almost 1 year and 4 months worth of us going through slasher, and you just have to let us be.
It's not it's not worth it. Like, that's the thing, is we've spent a lot of time on this. And we've had a good time, don't get me wrong.
It's been fun.
Yes. Yeah. But in terms of just like, this is a thing that we are consistently watching time and again. I mean, we'll see how we feel when we're on the other side of Pink Panther and then something else. Yeah. And, something that in theory is going to be more entertaining and a little bit more substantive.
Hopefully.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. I'm already thinking of like, well, when it's my pick, what do I do?
Yeah.
So I'm like, is it all just going to be, low budget garbage like I normally watch? Is it all? We'll decide. We'll figure something out.
We've got plenty of time. We've got plenty of time to sort it out.
All right. So.
Yes.
Let us begin with our usual shenanigans, which is to discuss a movie, good and bad, that we have seen since last we recorded. And You know what? I'll tell you what. I'm going to kick this off because it's something that we talked about kind of in chatting to one another,
Yeah.
and I just want to have this conversation. But I finally caught up to Nightmare Alley,
Oh,
and
dude.
holy shit, what an amazing movie! I mean, it's up there for me with the best thing Del Toro's ever done.
I think so. I think you could easily argue top three, and then I think you can maybe even squeeze in top two. I think it's that. I think it's still so fresh in my mind that give it a couple of years time, I think I'll be talking about things like Pan's Labyrinth and Nightmare Alley almost in the same breath. As such, maybe what I said to you was it felt effortless. I think Del Toro just has that. It just has almost a capacity now of just churning out a very kind of stylized, very thought-provoking, deep character studied, almost kind of dark fairy tale subject matter at just the highest level. And I genuinely don't feel when I watch his movies now that he's ever really flexing. It just kind of feels like, yeah, this is my cinema, and I love that about it. I mean, it's like from the set design to the story itself, but particularly the casting. I thought the casting was about as good as I've ever seen. Just across the board, there was not one bit of casting that didn't just like surprise. Like I said before, Willem Dafoe is always going to be great for those roles where he has to do like loads of dialogue and be really sinister about it. But Richard Jenkins is fucking incredible in it. Like he's an incredible actor already, but he is absolutely jaw-droppingly great at it. So
and has one of those moments where you're like, what did he just say? Like
I know,
like there's a reveal of that character, where even Bradley Cooper is like, "Look, I'm a scumbag," but even I think maybe you have crossed. Like, what do you mean? What did you do?
Yeah, and his assistant being did from Mindhunter.
Oh yeah,
which was great seeing as well. Him appear in that sort of role, but just across the board, it's an incredible movie. And like I say, from about 20, as soon as Defoe has, that they've dropped a geek off at the hospital and they're having steak and eggs, and Defoe starts spelling things out, you know what the ending is. You know what the end of the movie is. Yeah. But you want to follow it through to find out how you get there, and you get the dizzying highs and then the worst lows, and that final bit of dialogue. Bradley Cooper is phenomenal in it. He's like, it bowled me over, and it's like like I said to you before, like I was with my two friends I go to the cinema with, and they felt the movie was a tad long, and I was like, that give me another half an hour in this world, and it would have done absolutely nothing to quell my interest.
I think I've used this quote a number of times, but it's the Roger Ebert thing of no good movie can be too long and no bad movie can be too short. Mm-hmm. And Nightmare Alley, and I think I may have even made this comparison to you. It hit me the way that like a Zodiac does, where it's just like, I just want to live in this movie. I want
it's so tangible.
Yeah, I want to be in this world. And even though all the characters, not all, but most of the characters, like a solid 90%, are just despicable people.
Yeah.
That I just want to, I want to hear them talk. I want to see what they do day to day. Like, I just loved everything about it. It's such a whole vision that Del Toro has of this circus and the people in it and the life that they're leading. And you're right, that Willem Dafoe bit where, he's describing, like, how do you get a circus geek?
Yeah.
And when he's like, withhold the booze from him for a couple of days, and he'll geek all right. And you're like,
you'll get
oh, and like you said, where the movie's headed, but yes, that last moment. I've never seen a better example, I don't think, of somebody laugh crying.
Oh, there's there's a relief and agony in equal measure. It is just. He's so, and I don't know what. I've never been the biggest fan of Bradley Cooper. I think he's a fine actor, but I've never been like, yeah, this guy right here. But that, like, if ever there was a performance which completely 100% sold me on an actor, it was that. I thought he was absolutely incredible because it got the mix of, because he is an attractive looking guy, charm, charisma, a bit of, a bit of villainy in there, and then by the end, just like broken, like absolutely broken. Yeah.
It's
It's,
it,
it's so good, dude.
it's something. I was so happy it got nominated for Best Picture too. It's so
Yes. Yeah.
deserving. I
Yeah.
haven't seen all the movies on the Best Picture list. I really want to see Drive My Car. I keep hearing nothing but
Yeah.
great things about that. But of the movies I have seen, first of all, what in the ever living fuck is Don't Look Up doing on that list? But whatever.
I mean,
Uh,
I understand to an extent. It's the we now have to, like, everyone's been in lockdown. We have to cater to the Netflix crowd. I do understand that, and I understand it, once again, from a cast point of view, it's too big a movie, if you know what I mean, with its cast not to be in Oscar contention. But I'll hit you with my good one, which is
please.
up for Best Picture as well. Licorice Pizza is
Oh,
fucking incredible, like absolutely brilliant. Like just like another movie which the casting is on point. The main character is Philip Seymour Hoffman's son,
yeah, yeah.
and he's amazing in it. You like watching it. I'm like that. Boy, did you just get all your dad's talent? He's just, every time the camera's on him, you're like, this guy's a leading man. It's such a great performance. The three sisters who are in the kind of pop group Haim, uh,
Hmm.
who I really like, they're all in it. In fact, the main female actress, lead actress, is one of those sisters, and she's fucking great in it. But on top of that, they've got the casting is just weird. The casting is bizarre as fuck, because their parents play their parents in the movie as well, and they're hilarious. Bradley Cooper's in it. And guess what? Bradley Cooper's fucking amazing in it.
But yeah, he's having a
Plays
real his moment has come, right?
Yes, 100%. It kind of reminds me of that McConaughey thing a couple of years ago, where everyone was just like, Matthew McConaughey can act, like, and he doesn't just do rom coms. Is on that level. But yeah, it's a great, and it's one of those ones where it's just like a snapshot of time. It doesn't necessarily have a structured start, middle, and end, so to speak. You're just kind of following through these different like set pieces that are being set up from a particular time, but it's brilliant. It's, absolutely brilliant. So that was, I saw that at the cinema, and I'm really glad that I did, because I don't know when I would have got around to seeing that at home, if you know what I mean. It's just one of those ones I would have shunted down the list more and more. But yeah, seeing it at the cinema, I was just like, yeah, it's fucking great. So I think it probably will get some stuff. I don't know how well it'll do at the Oscars, but the fact it got a nod is kind of cool.
I'm looking forward to seeing that. I like, I'm a PTA guy. I think he's amazing.
He's really,
Um,
really, really good.
yeah,
There's always that realm of surrealism in these movies, and kind of like the characters you meet are all kind of almost Coen Brothers esque in that he's got a great way of bringing characters in that feel grounded, but at the same time, other like characters that come in and you go, boy, that's a weird guy. How did you write that? So yeah, it was really, really, really good.
great. All right. So here's my
Hit me with
bad,
your
but
bad.
yeah, this is, but with a caveat, right? Like this
Oh,
is it. It's not a great movie, but I had a real good time with it. Is sort of
oh,
where we land with this one. And the movie is Resident Evil: Welcome to Raccoon City.
is this the new one?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Right, so
yeah.
I've still to see this. I have it, but I've still to see it. So,
It
is
is.
it worth my time, Bo?
How fond are you of the Resident Evil games?
I love the Resident Evil games.
Then
Well,
you
certainly the first four. I played the first four.
Yeah,
So,
so you should at the very least watch this movie.
mhm.
It is very much a, hey, do you remember this from the game? And but like as a movie, I kind of wondered about this after I watched it, was if you had never played any of these games, would this movie make a lick of sense? And I
Oh,
don't
right.
know that it would,
Yeah.
but having seen or having played, especially Resident Evil 1 and 2, which is kind of what this movie is sort of mashing those two games together.
Right. Right.
Okay, but it is that. It is not the Mia Jovovich, like, hey, what if we just have the name and some zombies?
Yeah.
This is very much, here's the Raccoon Police Department, here's the
Yeah.
mansion. We're going to kind of do both of these things at once.
Yeah.
It's going to be a little bit of a mess. It is, the budget is certainly strained by what we're trying to pull
All
off
right.
here. Not everything is going to look great, but if you want to see Neil McDonough turn into a monster that's got eyeballs in his shoulder, then you are going to get that.
I mean, who doesn't want to see that? So
I mean, it was sort of my masturbatory fantasy for about 6 or 7 years. But it's Chris Redfield and Leon Kennedy, and I mean it is the games. And like I said, I don't think it's a completely successful movie, but there's enough little stuff in it that I'm like, I'm just that kind of dope, right? It's like when the band comes to your town and fits the name of your city into one of the songs. You're like, oh my God, they know where I live. They know where they are. It's that kind of thing. It's real dopey. Like, one of the first shots you get is a woman at like a nurse at a nurse's station, and there's a flyer pinned to the wall behind her that says like, try first aid spray to heal your wounds, stuff like that. You're like, I that's a thing from the game.
Yeah.
And it's stuff like that. Like one of the first zombies you see that isn't totally zombied out yet is has written on a door in blood like itchy tasty, and you're like, I read that's from the game. So it's that kind of stuff. I had a good time with it. It is not terribly long, so it doesn't totally overstay its welcome, and it's just chock full of that moment of like, oh yeah, I remember that. Oh yeah, I remember that. Oh yeah, I remember that. And it's enough fan service on that level that as much as I hate to admit it, it was like, I had fun with this. It's not great, but if you've never played those first two games in particular, I don't recommend it. But if you have, I totally recommend it, because it feels like somebody in the group, in the Dark Parade group, said like, this is the Resident Evil game or Resident Evil movie you thought they were going to make the first time you heard that they were making a Resident Evil movie. So that's my bad, even though it's not totally bad.
Yeah, well, my bad was terrible. So
go on.
Right, I realized once again, there are certain, I think everyone just thinks I've seen everything, and I genuinely haven't. There are whole sections of cinema that just kind of escape me, whole franchises that I've never even taken part of. And I don't know why I'm doing this out with the fact that I hate myself, but Netflix now starts to tell you when certain movies are being removed from their service.
Oh yeah.
So the Bourne Identity was on the screen as being removed on the 15th of February. It turns out all the Bourne movies are on Netflix in the UK, and they're all coming off on the 15th of February. And I kind of sat there and thought to myself, I've never seen any of these. Like, genuinely have never seen one of them. I will never buy a Blu-ray box set, even if it costs me £1. I'll never buy it. So, and I don't know when it'll appear on a streaming service again. You know what? I'm just gonna watch it. I'm just gonna, I'll give this first one a crack and see where we get to. And it's bad. Like, it's like I was surprised actually at how bad a movie it was. And I know there'll be people out there going, well, Duncan, it was 2002, right? I grant you, it was 2002. And I also know specifically, and I can now see it, like, to me, there was always a weirdness where, like, the Bond movies, the Daniel Craig Bond movies became incredibly, like, grim and action packed, and I could never understand why we made the jump from like the kind of Pierce Brosnan era, which I was never the biggest fan of anyway. But Pierce Brosnan was a relatively suave guy, and it was all about spying and all the rest. And then all of a sudden, it became like, well, he's a one-man demolition army. You know, like I could never quite grab that, and it's clearly the post-Bourne effect. Clearly, yeah. I mean,
100%. Yeah.
It's, you know, it's just like, well, that's what they're doing, and people like that, so we need to do this. But, and I don't want to upset any Bourne fans out there, but it's terrible. It's like low rent Luc Besson. You know how Luc Besson does those kind of French-based assassin sort of. It's like low rent that. I think Matt Damon is terrible in them. Like, I think he's acting as like almost Keanu Reeves, like kind of go whoa, kind of, you know, it's really, really, really bad. The stories, and when I say stories, I'm about halfway through the third one now, the Bourne Ultimatum. We're going to come back to this in a wee second though, because I will watch them all and then I will never watch them again. I'm going to get through. I'm so far through them now. We might as well get all this done. Legitimately, the only thing that I thought, oh, this is kind of interesting, is, and it didn't even come into effect until the second movie, was the inclusion of Brian Cox, who famous Dundonian actor. Absolutely love him to bits. You got to love Brian Cox if you're Scottish, because he's Scottish. He was the first Hannibal Lecter with a K. I absolutely like love him, and he's a tiny little role in the first movie, like kind of just in the background, and then in the second movie, he is a more the role I would expect from him, circa 2004, which was when he was in one of those X-Men movies, playing a very similar role. So Hollywood had just clearly typecast him at that point. Like, you are suspicious CIA guy who controls things from afar. But like, as the action isn't great. Matt Damon's not very convincing. The female actress that plays beside him as the love interest isn't very good either.
Isn't that
she's not very good.
From Run Lola Run. What is her name? Yeah.
She's a great actress, but she's not very good in this.
Famke Potente, something like that.
I would love a Potente.
Offer with a little bit of a strawberry reduction.
Right on the side. A little basil leaf. But yeah, like there's a and it suffers from that 2002 spy camera work. In every spy movie, they do the kind of when someone like it's fucking riddled with that, and it just gave me a headache. And I realized very, very, very quickly by the end of it, it basically ticked off a ton of cliches, but not done them well. So I moved into the second movie thinking, right, 2 years later, we've got that one under our belt. Let's move on. Let's give this one a try. And it's the same movie. It's almost identical. Like every single one of the movies, because I'm halfway through the third one, and they do the same thing again. Like Bourne gets discovered, gets pulled back into something. He's framed for something. There is a bit where he says he'll phone someone, he gets someone's phone number, he phones them and says, you need to be at this place in 30 minutes, and I'll phone you on a public phone, or I'll phone you on a mobile or whatever. And when they arrive there, he directs them through a minefield of other agents. And none of it's good. Like none of it is good. And it seems to have the weirdest fucking casting in the world. Like the second movie, the assassin is played by Karl Urban, who they've got playing a Russian hitman. Why not? And the third movie, try to think who was in because the assassin in the third movie is the Mexican guy he's in that movie Domino. Can never remember the name of that actor. He's been in loads. Yeah. He always plays kind of silent, reserved killer guy. But he appears as an assassin, and then like on the other side, which is good. There's honestly, it's like a rogue gallery who's who of, why are you in here? And why are you in this movie for 3 seconds? Like, there's just lots of like famous faces appear in these movies essentially to be a character that you might be involved with something that Jason Bourne shows up to speak to for 2 seconds and then fucks off out the movie. How 4 of these movies exist is beyond me. Like, I genuinely don't understand how.
5? I thought there were
5.
Yeah, I thought there were the 3 Matt Damon movies, and then there's like the Bourne. We need to make another one of these with Jeremy
There's
Renner.
the Bourne Supremacy is the next one, I think, isn't it?
Well, all right, hold on. You're going to force me.
Jeremy Renner takes over from the...
Well, briefly, but only for one movie. And then they bring... Hang on. There's... All right, Bourne Identity. Yeah. So Bourne Identity, Bourne Supremacy is number 2. Bourne Ultimatum is number 3.
That's the one I'm watching just now.
Is the Jeremy Renner one.
So he's not even in that.
Matt Damon is not. And then just a few years ago, there was a movie simply entitled Jason Bourne, in which Matt Damon returns to the series. So there are 5 movies total.
I'll have to watch it. And the thing is, I'm going to have to watch them all now. And they're not good. This is, for the longest time, I've heard people talk about the Bourne franchise and all the rest, and they're not good.
I like
they're really not good.
Bourne Supremacy. The 3rd one I think is the best of them.
That's the Ultimatum one. That's the one I'm watching just now.
Because it kind of at least resolves itself. And there's some good Brian Cox stuff in it, so that's kind of the best of them. But yeah,
that's the second one. No, you're thinking of the second one because Brian Cox dies in the second one.
Oh, does he, Duncan?
Yeah. What? Are you pulling my? I can't deal with this shit, bro. I can't fucking deal with it. Honestly, I can't. Don't fuck with me.
Hold on, let me make sure.
Don't fuck with me here. He's in the second movie. He kills himself. He shits himself in front of a witness.
Oh no. Maybe I'm thinking of Joan Allen and Scott Glenn.
Don't fuck with me here. Like he clearly kills himself in the second movie.
But you're right. No, every movie is the same. Of like, oh my god, we're responsible for making Jason Bourne. I'm coming to get you. Holy shit, he came to get us.
Literally, there's a bit where I was thinking to myself, do we need to, 3 movies into this, do I need someone from the CIA walking into a CIA room, basically saying, what do you mean we don't have a tab on him? This is Jason fucking Bourne we're talking about here. Yeah. By this point, everyone knows it's Jason Bourne. Why they keep going after him at the end of every movie, he seems to have some sort of handshake verbal agreement with him where he's like that, you don't fuck with me, I don't fuck with you, the world's fine. And then in the next movie, someone fucks with him. So he comes back. Right. I can understand doing that once, making the mistake once for the second movie. I understand that. But by the time we're rolling into that 3rd movie and someone's poking the angry bear with a stick, I don't get it. I don't fucking get it. I don't understand why they're trying to link it back. I don't care where he came from. I don't care about Operation Threadbare or Threadfoot or Treadfoot or whatever it's fucking called. I don't care about Jason Bourne. I don't care about any of it, and I'm going to have to fucking finish watching it because I've started it now, Bo, and this is my life. I could be watching Midnight Mass, Bo. I could be watching Midnight Mass, but instead I'm watching pole-faced fucking wooden Matt Damon pretend to be an action star, which he's not.
I think history is not going to be kind to Matt Damon as an actor.
But the thing is, there are performances of his that I enjoy, but they tend to be ones where he's a bit more playful.
Yeah.
I think he's fine as a side character, like the Ocean's movies. I think he's great in the Ocean's movies.
Yes.
But he's a side character who kind of has to prove himself and he's having a bit of fun with it. That's fine. That's Matt Damon. I watched this one. Action star ? No. It's I'm this great secret agent who has 40 passports with all exactly the same photo on it. They know what I look like and I never change my appearance.
I like let me just say how much I love the fact that you are just slaughtering a sacred cow here, because a lot of people love those Jason Bourne movies.
They love them.
I'm kind of with you. I saw the first 3 and then it was just never interested past that because I was like, well, it ended. I don't just because as we have already quoted in this episode, just because you can doesn't mean you
Yeah.
should. And I
And
was
it's the Bond
fine.
thing again. I think
Yeah.
that's like it's obviously it's influenced by Bond and has influenced Bond. The idea that we can just spin up another one with a new actor
Yeah.
is that's James Bond. Like
And then
literally,
that didn't work.
yeah.
So they just bring back
But bring him back
Matt
because
Damon
yeah,
to try to squeeze a little more blood out of that turnip.
he better got paid a lot of money
I'm
for
sure
that.
he did.
Yeah,
And
better. But so yeah, that's my. So by next time we speak, I will have finished all now 5 of them. Only thinking there was 4.
you will have seen more than I ever will. So
Ugh.
There's
But yeah,
that.
that's my cross to bear, Boran, still. But let's talk about something infinitely better. No, that's not.
Yeah.
It's not infinitely better.
Yeah, I mean, that's. Would you rather watch 5 Jason Bourne movies, or would you rather watch 1 season of Slasher? That's a question philosophers have been asking for decades.
I'd probably watch the Bourne movies at this stage.
Yeah,
like back at like season 2 Slasher, I probably would have been like, they're only 40 minutes. 8 of them's less time than 5 movies. Yeah, I'll do that because math. But at this point, I'm like, even the math doesn't help it. So
yeah. So let's get into. IMDb's already updated with the fact that there are going to be 4 or 5 seasons. So
I thought you were about to say IMDb's just updated to say there's going to be another Bourne movie, and I was about to kill myself on camera.
Like Brian Cox.
He's such a good actor, man. He's such like you would not know listening to him. You would not know how Scottish he actually is.
Yeah,
he's got that kind of almost it's not fully American, you know what I mean, but he's got that kind of you believe he's lived in America all his life sort of accent, but not originally from there. Which I love. I've started to get on this Succession thing that everyone keeps telling me he's absolutely amazing, and it's winning all the awards, and no doubt it'll be amazing. But I saw an interview with him recently where someone was saying he was being interviewed on one of these daytime TV shows because he's very political in the UK. So like the very, very left-wing politics, which is one more reason, if you're me, to enjoy him. He was on to talk about that, but in the interview, the interviewer made a foolish mistake about basically saying, you've landed the role of your career in this Succession, and you're getting all the fame and accolades and stuff like that so late into your career now. And he kind of stopped the guy and he's like, that I've had a really good career and it's been long. Like I've never been short of roles. I've had a varied career and done lots of different things. Yes, this is very, very popular and very, very successful, but my body of work speaks for itself. And I was like, you tell him, Brian Cox, you're a fucking incredible body. You go back and look at what that guy's done. It's everything from tense thrillers through to action to drama. He was fucking Hannibal Lecter with a K, god damn it. So yeah, I think he's like, I just love the idea this guy clearly hadn't done his research and got schooled. So
yeah, I haven't watched Succession either. I'm still trying to get through Archive 81.
I finished it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed where it ended. And if they decide to do it, they kind of left the ending in a way where they could do another season, or they could just leave it where it is. If they did another season, I'd 100% watch it. So
I've enjoyed. I mean, obviously, the fact that Benson and Moorhead have a lot to do with the show.
Yeah, well, their episode in particular was fucking incredible. So
yeah, and there is a pace to the series that I appreciate, but I don't think it propels me through it. I like the fact that it's kind of measured and so forth. And it's got a very quiet tone, and everyone's very subdued until a woman starts clawing her face off. And
such a great scene, though.
No, that was terrific. And there are things I really dig about it. And I'll probably finish this weekend, maybe.
Yeah. It's worth getting through it to put it away, if you know what I mean. But I think you'll enjoy it. It gets very goofy towards the end, but in a way that I kind of enjoy. And like I say, the setup could be such that we could revisit, and if we did, it'd be interesting to see how they do that. But at the same time, if they don't and they leave it as a kind of, well, this doesn't exactly have the happiest ending in the world, I'd be cool with that as well. So
all right, well, speaking of shows that you just can't help but watch. Let's get to this episode of Slasher Season 4, Episode 2, entitled The Sins of the Father, or in German, Die Sins der Vater. I don't know. I don't speak German.
It's Fascia.
Fascia. Der
Fascia.
Sins auf der Faser.
Das Boot.
Yeah.
That's
Wolfgang Peterson, I think is how you pronounce it. Anyway,
man.
So
directed Never Ending Story. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, well, how do you follow up Das Boot by killing a horse?
Yeah, a beloved horse.
Yeah.
In a pit of sadness, Bo, scarring every child forever.
That truly was one of those things that when you're a kid, you're like, the horse fucking dies?
It's not even that the horse died. The horse died because it was sad and gave up.
Yeah. It's rough.
That's like I don't know. I still like me. I don't know if I told you, we watched like I'm getting the wee one into watching more movies, like just kind of getting our like we're doing the Lord of the Ring movies. I told you before.
Yeah.
We just finished that second one. The CGI is worse than the first one, so I don't know how they did that. But we're powering through that because the TV show's coming out later in the year, and I want to be able to watch that with her. But we're picking off certain things that I think she should have seen. And last year we watched a lot of the movies that I grew up watching as a kid. So you're passing that on, a lot of those kind of 80s classics like Flight of the Navigator. And we sat down and watched The Never Ending Story. And she howled when the horse died. And I was like, this is just universal misery.
Yeah.
Like this knows no generation. Like she was sitting and watching it and she absolutely howling and hugging into me and is the horse going to be okay? And I was like that at the end, like we'll get to because at the end the horse comes back alive, obviously, because but like try to then like because that happens early in the movie, try to convince her to watch another hour where potentially everyone can die. She's like, you lied to me, Dad. You said this would be a fun time.
You said this would be a happy place.
Yeah, you said this was a great movie, Dad. And I was like, yeah, but also just made me realize how different cinema is now.
Yeah. It's
for kids.
Yeah. Well, right. They're much more aware of the fact that maybe we shouldn't traumatize children, but also, you decide if that's good or bad. Anyway, all right.
Slasher, boy.
Yeah, get back to Slasher. Sins auf der Faser. So it starts out with where we ended the last episode, where Vincent, the abducted and long lost son, has shown up. And
twin as well. I did not know he was a twin. I don't know if they mentioned he was a twin.
Who cares? You're right. I shouldn't say who cares, but also who cares. Yeah. But I like that this starts off with Florence, the mother, just shoving Theo out of the way. Like,
get the fuck out the way, son, that I don't love as much as my missing son.
Yeah. and so she's like, oh my God, I can't believe you're here. She's hugging him. She's kissing him. And he says, oh yeah, well, it turns out that David Cronenberg.
Such a Cronenberg move. Yeah. Such a dickhead move, dude. This is amazing.
He knew for months that that
he found me a month ago and paid for me to arrive on the island. And she's like that. So he knew like for a month. And like Theo's like, who cares? He's here now. She's like, he knew for a fucking month and he didn't tell me. And she starts going crazy and shit. I'm like, you know what? We're going to go up there and give him a piece of our mind. That's what, isn't that right? Everyone's like, yeah, pitchforks, fucking flame torches in hand. Let's march to the castle and give Cronenberg a piece of our mind. And Dr. Death, who is like, I have 100% the killer from this episode. Like I'm now, I've like, even the way the killer moves, like the height, she's a tall woman, right? For a start, she's a fucking like, she's a big bitch, right? And I am now like, don't stop laughing. I'm convinced. I'm all in. If I'm wrong, then it's the last season until next year, and I can accept on the chin.
I disagree, but I also don't have a good reason to disagree. I just don't.
I have no reason to think it's her, except that she enjoys killing, she enjoys death, and she's involved with everything a little bit too much. But she's like, well, you can't go and speak to your father because he's he's dead. And they're like, what do you mean he's dead? And she's like, well, I administered the stuff while we were coming down here. That's what he wanted. He didn't want any. He's worried. And they're all like, and then all the fake sort of grief kicks in as they all run up to his bed, where to conceal the fact that his chest melted in on itself, all someone had to do was pull a cover over him. Mm-hmm. I love when she's like, he wanted to die peacefully, and he's like this.
Yeah, it is just a rictus of pain and horror.
It looks like he's seen the Ring videotape.
Or like he's Sutherland screaming at the end of Body Snatchers. Yeah,
he's 100%. He looks. That does not look peaceful, right, at all. No. And but then the power play starts happening, which is basically. That's going to be the thing for the whole season now. Is like basically how can they all fuck each other quick enough?
Yeah.
In this one, so that kicks off.
Yeah. So yeah, right. And our cut to credits on the opening is like everybody rushes inside and cries and whatnot, and you see below the bed just a chunk of him.
I thought it was his heart fell. I thought it was supposed to be his heart, and I was like, that's anatomically too small.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what they were. Anyway, but then you get the wah, 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 slasher credits. Yeah. And so we cut from that back to like this parlor area downstairs where Robin and Jaden are arguing about how like, well, David Cronenberg didn't say goodbye to anybody. Like he didn't care enough about anybody in the family to say goodbye. And Jaden is especially upset by this. He's like, I thought we had a different relationship. And Robin's like, fuck you. And
like Robin is a lot of fuck you in this episode.
Which when you learn why, you're like, dude, this is
not like he's overreacting like a motherfucker.
Not Jaden's fault by any stretch. No. Anyway, but we'll get to all right. So we start with a flashback where Robin and Jaden are like super good buddies. And Robin
is only 19 months ago, right?
Right.
Like, so
and he's like, hey, Robin says we're thinking of adopting a creepy kid. What do you think?
We're thinking about adopting the kid with Pika.
Dude, so, I've got
which you know for a fact she did not disclose that during the interview. By the way, I like you imagine like he was talking about having a FaceTime call. Yeah, that'd be a different FaceTime call. While she was talking, she was eating cans.
Dude, let me give you my theory of what's going on. Is that Afra is at least in on it, and that she is like an orphan style, way older than she lets on. and in my defense, one of the reasons I think this is because in this scene, Robin is like, she's so smart. Like she's got the brains of a 20-year-old.
Yeah, he does say that actually.
Right. And this is exactly the kind of shit that Aaron Martin would be like, say, you know what no one will expect is if I rip off Orphan in this show. So let's put a pin in that. That's what a pet theory of mine is that Afra
that might be my new favorite pet theory.
Is it
that moment where like, is he pulling an orphan?
Yeah.
Is he pulling an orphan on me right now?
Yeah, nobody likes it when you have an orphan pulled on them. Least of all the orphan. And so anyway, but yeah, and Robin is just bitching about how expensive it is to adopt an orphan.
50,000 Canadian dollars, which
does not seem that expensive in the grand scheme.
I wouldn't have thought so. And I also thought to myself, like, he's moaning because Cronenberg's cut off his allowance. And I'm like, you're a fucking grown man. Why do you have an allowance? Like, the longer this goes on, the more I'm I'm with Cronenberg.
Yeah.
Like, his family's all fucking useless. And you know for a fact, Cronenberg probably had to kill men with his hands, with his bare fucking hands, to ascend to the top of the company that he's running.
And his cold, icy stare. His hands are just staring him to death.
Well, that's but yeah, like he's he's cost too much money. My dad will never give me it, and his brother does the right thing. He's like that. Listen, like I will talk to him on your behalf. And
Mhm.
it kind of feels like Cronenberg calls this, by the way, was like that, like your brother's playing you. And we'll get to that later on. He's like that. It's clear there's a reason he's had this conversation with you.
Yeah.
It's because he's playing you. He knows that you'll come up and speak to me. But we'll swing into this. So basically, they're good. They're tight as brothers. None of this animosity that we see here is existing. Do we get the Cronenberg bits right now, isn't it? Like, so essentially we see that conversation.
No. We cut back to the present.
Yeah, and is this the bit with the, because this is amazing because Theo's like that. Well, I'm not participating in this game. I'm just not doing it. And
no, it's Jaden again on the back end of this flashback. It's Jaden saying, because he's too good to live and to be part of this family, is like, I apologize. You're right. I was making all of this about myself. We all lost somebody today. But that's where they're like, Theo says he's not going to have anything to do with it.
And she's like, well, if you don't, then Dr. Death is at the background going, well, if you don't, you are ineligible to get any of the inheritance.
Yeah.
And Theo's like, kind of want to take a look at that will, right? So he walks up, and meanwhile they're all bickering, and it turns out because they're all at that, what happens if we all don't do it? And Theo's kind of looking at it going, Cronenberg was a real mean son of a bitch. He's got this written that it's kind of airtight here. We have to participate, and if we don't get anything. We're essentially cut off, and if we don't all do it together, then his entire inheritance goes back into the company, of which none of us are cheering. So,
right. And so Robin and Grace at this point are like, we're totally in.
Yeah,
we're in. And Theo says, all right, I'm in as well, only so that if I win, no one ever has to do anything like this again. Because I'm a good dude, and I would not make my family.
I'll make sure you get the impression he'll make sure that everyone's taken care of.
Yes,
only one to say that though.
Right. But I think you get the idea that Jaden is kind of in the same boat. Like, Jaden is a decent dude.
Yeah, like the more we find out about him, which is why once again this episode is just like Slasher just pushes like any light or any enjoyable or any like likable trait about any character like out and then murders them. I don't get, like, give me, what is the matter with having Jaden be a flawed, complicated, but at his core decent guy character like we've seen in the flashbacks? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead, the way that's paid off in this episode is ultimately at the end he's the one that's going to be punished. So I don't get that. I hate that about the way Aaron Martin's Slasher does it. Like, any character that does anything remotely good or has any sense of redemption is the ones that usually suffer pretty fast in the TV show. But yeah, so they're all going to have to take part in it. And the weird thing about this is, and this is once again, this just sums up how bad the writing is here. Vincent's back,
right? And no one seems all that shocked by this.
No one's like, there has not been one person ask him yet, where you been, buddy?
Dude, it takes so long to get to that scene. I felt the same way where, like, why is no one just being like, yeah, David Cronenberg died. We all got to play this game.
Yeah, at least he told us. Yeah, at least he told us he was going to die.
Yeah.
What the fuck is going on here? It's so bizarre. Yeah. It's so bizarre.
So, and finally we get this when Vincent and Theo go to their room that they shared as kids.
Yeah, which hasn't changed, by the way. It still looks like a kid's room.
And Theo wisely kind of gives them the, like, hey, do you remember drawing this picture? Like, gives them a little bit of, like, a bit of a personality test. Like,
well, Vincent says, are you asking me that, or are you asking me if I'm your brother?
Yeah. And also, which he passes, he's like, oh yeah, I did this. Remember when I drew these incredibly violent pictures of the family ghost?
There is a picture of a small kid holding a knife standing over a body, which is 2 steps away from the picture that's uncovered in deep red. when the stuff starts coming off the wall, and you're like, that's a scene of fucking horror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so finally somebody in the show is like, hey, what happened to you?
Yeah, it's like someone in the writer's room's like, maybe should we explain? Do you think we should explain where he's been?
But
Does it feel like
you think people would be curious about that? Are you sure?
yeah? I mean, we
all
spent time in the previous episode seeing him get abducted. It kind of feels like that may have raised a question we might have to answer.
All right, well, if you say so, let's go ahead and write it in. And
let's do what Steve, the writer, wants to do and do a little bit of exposition.
And so he gives this very vague kind of explanation of like I was kidnapped, I was taken to this boarding house kind of thing, and then after a couple of weeks, I was given to this other family.
Sold into adoption? Question mark?
Yeah, I mean, big question mark. And then he says, yeah, and then there was this other family that I came to know as my family, and I over time I just forgot that you guys were all related to me or whatever.
Yeah.
And Theo is like, well, that's horrible. He's like, don't you ever talk bad about my fake family that kidnapped me. And
he does make a point of saying like that. Is it just me, or is our mum just a little bit nuts?
Well, yeah, I mean,
that's from one conversation he's had with Florence, and I'm like, yes, she's fucking nuts. Later on, she starts like fondling him in a really uncomfortable way.
It is super uncomfortable. And the weirdest part of this scene to me, other than the fact that it takes so long in the episode to get to it, is that at one point, Theo is like, well, you wanna call dibs on the bunk beds, and Vincent immediately is like, top bunk. Yeah. Where I come from, you don't want the bottom bunk. And you're like, what? What kind of pea-soaked world are you coming from? Or what the fuck? Were you in prison?
There's trauma there. I was like, yeah. I think it's prison. I think what you're going to find is prison.
Yeah, and so ultimately, a bell rings for everyone to get called to the next contest.
Oh, man.
And dead. So Florence, meanwhile, the crazy mom confronts evil Dr. Assassin.
This is a great conversation because she just gets owned like every step of the way.
She's like, how do I know you're even a doctor? And she's like,
she says Dr. Phil is a doctor, but he isn't actually a qualified doctor.
Yeah. And
she's like, how do we even know that you're a doctor? And she's like, yeah, well, I am. And she's like, well, how do I know he was of sane mind when he wrote all that? And she's like, well, legally he has to be signed off from 3 doctors to say that he's competent to do that. And I'm one of those doctors. You know what? You can contact the other 2 if you want. And she's like, well, how much are you getting for this? And like, well, as the person executing the will, I get 10%. That's my fee. And I was like, I need to get in on that, Bo. How do we get in on that money?
Yeah, of conducting.
Everyone dies, dude.
Yeah.
Everyone dies. If we can get 10% every time someone dies.
I think what you're describing is the whole funeral home industry.
Let's do it.
I mean, look, I ain't above it.
No, that's the catchline for DVCC funeral homes. I ain't above it.
You're below, and we ain't above it. Do you want to be buried in the shoddiest pine box available for the least amount of money? I ain't above it.
When this podcast thing dries up, Bo, I'll move to Tennessee, and that's what we're doing.
Look, I don't think there are even laws about where you bury people in this state, so we're perfect. We've got this. We've got this on lockdown. So yeah, but Dr. Tread is like, yeah, he was certified as being of sound mind. There were other doctors that were consulted. All of this is on the up and up. It was all his idea.
Yeah,
and
she specifically says he sought out me.
Yeah, and Trin basically ends the conversation with like, Florence, here's the deal. You suck. And you're gonna be super poor after the weekend is done.
I think she basically tells her that she's got no chance of winning. Like a doll.
Yeah, and so then we leave that scene for her to go outside, for Florence to go outside, and this is where she's like massaging Vincent's rock hard shoulders.
And she's like, look at his body. He's just like his brother, except for these tight shoulders.
Yeah, and So Vincent wisely is just like, I'm gonna go over here and do something other than be fondled by my biological mother.
Well, we missed a thing earlier on as well. Like when the episode starts and Theo is looking at Vincent, that's when he introduces, "This is your sibling,
Yeah.
O'Keefe." Who talks like he says sibling?
I think it's a whole like,
I know
oh,
it's because of the
she's
whole.
non-binary and all
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I do understand that, but I also understand that Vincent has just arrived, so we can dispel a little bit of that and just say, by the way, this is, we have another sibling. I suppose. I
Yeah.
don't like it. I don't like it. It's confusing and muddled, and it's not how people would act when you've seen your long lost twin for the first time. Anyway, O'Keefe's there.
You would
And
say this is our sister. She identifies as non-binary, so use
100%.
they. So you're going to
100%.
call her they instead of she.
Yeah.
And that's how we're gonna you
Yeah.
establish that one time,
And
then you're
Vincent's
good.
like come back on the island and like literally has found that he has someone else that he didn't know existed, and he's could not give a fuck.
Yeah,
Like even when they're sitting together, like it's not as if they're like, "I didn't even know you existed. Well, I'm so glad to like we're finally meeting each other." Like there's none of that. As soon as awkward mum comes across and starts doing the old shoulder rub, he's like, yeah, I'm going over there."
yeah,
And O'Keefe rightly's like that, "Mum, what the fuck? Like, what are you doing? It's very creepy. Your
right.
dad's just died, and now you're out here with a big smile on your face, just like,
And this is where she said, "Man, I just hate the writers of this show." But
yeah,
she's like, well, as someone who's non-binary queer, mom, and you're like, I
yeah,
get it. You don't have.
yeah.
Again, this just isn't how people talk. Like,
It isn't. No, no, no. It isn't. Certainly not. But the mum hints at the idea that maybe this is a phase for Keith, and she'll get out. She'll have kids one day, and all the rest. Just completely, once again, clueless and tactless as a character. But yeah, we're moving into the realms of the first game, which we kind of seen a second of, like in the previous episode. We just seen a lot of ropes.
mm-hmm.
But we're now actually going to get this is your first challenge.
Well, there's one other like preamble to this, which is Grace telling Jaden,
Yeah,
like, hey, you can't let these other fuckers get any of this money. And you need to man up and win this thing.
Yeah.
And then she kind of stalks off, and that's where Theo kind of swoops in to talk to Jaden. And both of them are like, man, our family is really like, talk about a pit of vipers. Like they're at each other's throats, and because everybody's kind of screaming at each other, the way that Theo puts it is there's not a lot of room for quieter voices like ours.
Yes.
And I think both of us believe that if one of us wins, that we're going to try to do the right thing.
Yeah, we'll do the right thing. And he kind of silently nods without being like, it's not a full-throated committal, but at the same time, you kind of see that's where he's leaning.
Yeah. And so then that you're right. Then we go to this, jungle gym with a bunch of ropes hanging from it, where Dr. Evil Assassin is like, okay, here's the deal. Everybody climbs up the rope. First person to fall off is the loser. There's not a winner. There's only a loser.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And there's an extra rope, by the way, for Liv, who is also a blood relative. And they're all like, the fuck? And
right.
Like, yep.
And Theo is the one who's like, hey, if this is true, if this is like, if we know for sure she's a blood relative, she has as much right to this as anybody. So he kind of sticks up for her, which isn't surprising because he seems to have a thing for her, but also now that we know they're related, is a real like Luke's and Leia kind of creepy.
Yeah, let's. I'm just hoping that doesn't happen now.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so Liv comes down. She's going to take part as well. They all climb up onto the rope, and there's a knot at the bottom that they can put their feet on, and then. The little twist, the Cronenbergian twist to this game comes out where each of them gets what I can only describe as like a bath mat full of fucking road spikes put underneath them. So if the first person to fall is not only the loser and not only loses the inheritance or the entitlement of the inheritance, but will also be impaled.
Well, yeah, and you would think if you landed feet first, you could absolutely survive this, but it also would be fucking painful.
Yeah, you're not walking for a while.
Yeah.
And even then, you're not walking properly, like normally for a long time. You're doing the old James Caan at the end of Misery Walk, you know what I mean? Where you're just like with the cane and shit.
And she
But
also
like,
points out, like, it's also fucking cold out here.
well, this is the thing. This is like, because to me, I was looking at it going, well, this is relatively easy. The thing that'll get you is when you get tired. And she's like that, well, it's already very cold. The first thing that's going to happen is your hands are going to be. But then I thought to myself, this is an outside game.
Hmm?
Everyone knew it was an outside game.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone knows what the weather's like. You've all come out to play it. And none of you are wearing gloves, scarf, like proper, like cold, like, in fact, no one's really wearing anything that would endear them to cold weather. And I kind of just thought to myself, every single person needs to lose at this point. Like,
Yeah, everybody should just jump off at once.
Yeah, this is fucking ridiculous.
But
so yeah,
there's a quick like passage of time scene where Dr. Trent says, "Hey, okay, everybody's doing reasonably well after an hour."
yeah.
And then you have yet another flashback where it's once again Jaden talking to David Cronenberg about this adoption.
This is literally going to be a Cronenberg flashback from now on. It's him sitting at this desk drinking scotch, and I can see why he signed on to do the show.
Right. Yeah. Like they just shot this in his den.
Yeah.
He never left his home, and they just brought the actors over.
They flew the actors up to him,
Yeah,
and brought him in, and they sat him down. And Cronenberg just was Cronenberg in this scene. He's brilliant because he's like that. Yeah, like why are you here? And he's like that. You know your brother is playing you, but you know what? I'll give him the money. I'll give him the money. And Jane's like, "You're gonna give him the money? That's amazing. It's for the family. It's all this." It's like, I'm gonna give him the money, but. And he doesn't. This is the genius how twisted the Cronenberg character is. He's like, you need to get something from him because that's how transactions work. Can't be benevolent here. Can't people walking all over you. You need to get something back of. It wasn't even of equal value. It was just something that is, to him as important as what you are going to give to him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's as simple as that. You do that, the money's his. You don't, money's not. And I think Jaden's like that. Yeah, I mean, this sounds easy. This is fine. But he does not have a clue what it is he's going to get off his brother. And probably, I don't think that's fully formed yet until he speaks to his severely conniving mother.
Right.
You 100% see why Cronenberg married her.
Right. She, I mean, in addition to fucking the boat guy, is a schemer as well. But yeah, and so Jaden, when we cut back to the present after that flashback, and Jaden sees that his mother doesn't have a vest on.
Yeah.
And so he takes off his vest, gives it to his mom, and Robin is like, "That's against the rules. That's against the rules."
He is such he's like, Dr. Death, can you see here? And she's like that. Well, actually, there isn't any rules.
Yeah.
I mean,
the only rule is that you can't fall off the rope, and Robin's like, "Oh, well, if that's the case, I'm just gonna swing towards Jaden and try to kick him off."
Right. Now, there's a few things about this that make this incredibly dumb, right? Mm-hmm. Like the first thing that it makes it incredibly dumb is his actions in doing this at the start preclude what Jaden falls for later on. Now, you wouldn't trust this cunt again after what he'd just done here. You wouldn't trust him with the whole jacket thing later on because he's actively said he doesn't like you. And he's also actively tried to, to swing over to kick you off, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing, he was never making it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he swings quite a bit and he can't do it. And that's when Cronenberg's new wife is like that. Oh, can never really commit to something. Can always fail halfway through it, do you? Mm-hmm.
And all right. And so we go from that, from the competition to, again, because we're doing all these flashbacks to kind of show the passage of time while they're on the ropes. And this time it's Jaden talking to his mom, Grace, about this deal that he got with David Cronenberg about the adoption. Yeah. And she says, that's great that he is training you to take over the business.
Yeah.
And, you've been the proxy for Robin on the board of directors. He doesn't really seem to have any interest in that board seat. So
Yeah.
what you ought to do is just get him to give you the seat that you're managing anyway.
Yep.
And Jaden's like, yeah, I guess that's true. So
Yeah, he's going to have the kids, so he's going to be busy with the kids. So, and yeah, you're right. He doesn't ever show up and doesn't show really any interest. So yeah, that feels. And to me, I was like that. Actually, yes. If you like, there's part of like,
yeah.
I'm like you're his pro. What does that like the pro? So you're just sitting there doing all the fucking work, and he's sitting back there moaning that he's been cut off from his inheritance.
Right,
He's not doing anything.
You're making all the decisions. You're like basically you've got 2 votes on the board.
Yeah.
You've got yours and his, and Robin doesn't seem to give a shit about it. So
like no fucking brainer. Yeah, 100%. Actually,
right.
part of me was like that. You know, that'll never fly because like Cronenberg's going to be sitting up there going, you know, like, you know, that didn't like because there's part like where I think even Jaden thinks to an extent that this might not be like a high like because like Robin's not going to be bothered about it. So
right.
Is this of equal value? But turns out, Bo, as we'll find out later on, Robin's a dick.
Yeah, all right. So we'll get to this in just a second.
I actively hate him as a character. I tell you who I actively love as a character, Dawn.
Look, what's her name? Paula Bronchetti, who plays Dawn, and
she's fucking great.
She is once more, ever since season 2 of Slasher, she was the voice of reason in that season.
Yeah.
A bit of a crazy person in the last one we did, but once more back to the voice of reason as far as being the person who understands here is how we navigate this crazy bullshit that your family is trying to pull.
Yeah, she's fucking great.
Anyway, we'll get to her in a second. But so we cut back to the ropes where Dr. Death has announced it's been 2 hours now.
Yeah.
And Robin is like, you know what? I'm starting to have a change of heart. Jaden, you don't have a jacket. I'm fine. How about I give you my jacket? And Jaden is like, are you serious, Clark? And he's like, yeah, Eddie, I am. And so they do this like swing towards each other.
Yeah, but he's not like, I'm thinking to myself, one, I would ask him to throw it.
Yes.
But not be doing the swingy thing. Yeah. But like, go and explain to me how this happens, right? Because the assumption would be, he's like, you're almost there. Just swing a little bit more. At what point to grab a jacket do you take both hands off the rope?
It doesn't make any sense. But so Jaden and Robin are swinging towards each other. At the last moment, as Jaden reaches out to grab this jacket,
he pulls a yoink.
Yeah,
yoink.
He does. Snatches it away at the last minute, and Jaden then falls. And falls onto this pit of spikes. Yeah. And so the game is now over. Everybody goes back into the house where Dawn and Grace are the 2 people kind of attending Jaden's wounds.
Giant gouge marks at his back, while Robin in the background is like, you lose.
And so Robin,
you get an anecdotal story later on for the reason behind this, which like made me love David Cronenberg even more. But we talk about was it when I was a kid playing like Monopoly or Scrabble or whatever, every time my dad beat me when I was 6, he would play We Are the Champions at the loudest, like the most, which is the sort of shit I do. So
well, see where that leads with your family, Duncan. This is like you're telling the prequel story of Slasher season 4.
I can't wait to be on my deathbed and play a dangerous game with my family.
If only. Oh, I mean, that's real. I've always said that when I die, I want to leave behind instructions for a scavenger hunt where the actual clues don't exist. I just want a bunch of people running around all random like for a few hours before everyone realized that like I was just fucking with them. You know, like
the real treasure was inside you all along.
It's the companionship that everyone shares. But yeah, so sure enough, Robin is gloating about like, you're out, you suck.
Yeah.
And he and the orphan take off after the gloating is done. and and Grace is like, you should have known better. You should never have trusted Robin. He's like, hey, I'm bleeding here just because I'm a decent
I'm
human
feeling
being.
a little woozy.
Oh, my dad's gonna be so mad at me. And Liv, meanwhile, goes to the kitchen where her mom is just weeping to herself,
crying openly into what looks like a very delicious tart.
And,
like, I'm like, you're just ruining that work there. And this is a kind of weird scene. Because she comes in and she's just like, all this time, Mum, all this time that I've been asking you, because she's like, and then she's like that. And she goes to speak to her and Liv walks out and I'm like, so nothing. Right.
It's a super short scene. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh, so David Cronenberg was my dad. You never told me.
Also, in the previous episode, Liv's mum actively said to Cronenberg, do all your descendants are all your descendants like, so she was actively pushing this. So she can't then be like, oh, I can't believe the secret's out now.
Also, we as the audience already have this information.
Yes.
And so what does this scene do other than tell us that Liv is upset about this?
That she didn't know, which we already knew.
All right, so Robin and Dawn later. This is the moment that you kind of fall in love with Dawn all over again.
Yeah.
Where they run into each other in the hallways, and Dawn is like, this family is fucked up. All of you need to go to therapy.
I think she says that. It's like, well, how about you, like, one of you gets that inheritance money and you'll lock yourself with a therapist for a month and you'll deprogram the shit that your dad did to you.
Yeah.
Which is like, because you're all still playing by his rules and he's not here anymore.
Yeah. And Robin is like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm on the path to winning all this money. And she's like, maybe so, but if you keep this shit up, even if you win, you are going to hate yourself and the choices that you've made to get that money. So
you will see the result of his feelings specifically about his dad in a flashback scene coming up.
Yes.
Because he doesn't like the idea of becoming his dad, or he never wanted to become his dad, and lo and behold, look at him here. You know what I mean? It's like, but it's where he does his bit where he's like that. I was 6 years old and my dad used to play We Are the Champions loud every time he bet me at a board game. So yeah,
and
like
Dawn
she's brutal with him. Like,
so
I think
good.
she makes a comment about as well like that. Like he's like his head not being in the game here or in the bedroom, and I was like, oh,
yeah,
like, yeah, it's flying.
Yeah, throwing some shade about his performance in the sack as well. Yeah, like, hey, you know what you need to pay attention to? Forget about our crazy orphan daughter for 2 seconds.
Who's in the background eating a picture frame.
And plotting the murder of Dawn so that she can become the wife. So there's yet another flashback where it's Jaden telling Robin, like, hey, I secured the money for you.
Yeah.
But here's the deal.
This deal, once again, is not a bad deal.
Yeah.
You're getting a kid. Like, a kid paid for you.
And also, after proposing, like, hey, you're going to give up your seat on the board that I'm already controlling.
Yeah.
And then you get the money for this adoption that's so important to you. FYI, this is not my idea. This was a condition that David Cronenberg has made me agree to get something out of this. And this seemed to be the thing that was the most, agreeable to both of us.
Yeah, yeah.
And Robin's like, all right.
Fuck you.
He's like, I'll take your money, all right, but this means we're not brothers anymore. And you're like,
he's just molding you into himself, which means if he's going to make you more like him, that means you can't be my brother anymore. I'm like, should you like these are the sort of
then turn down the deal.
Yeah. Well, find the money somewhere else. Get a loan.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Do something. I don't know. the hard way for a change, Robin. Like these are the sort of like if you're going to be that petty and that bitchy and whiny about things at this stage, maybe you shouldn't be a father.
It's head scratching to me because I think you and I are both just practical enough and also independent enough that
100%.
you're like, yeah, then then you pick up that second job or you do a side hustle to pay for this loan or whatever it is that you got to do.
I remember when like myself and my wife had decided, we're going to get married and all the rest. Never at one point did I entertain money coming from any family member for that. We paid for the whole thing ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were like, that'll take us 2.5 years to do it. We need to knuckle down. This is the stuff we'll do without. But at the end of it, no one gets us. Everything we want is ours. There's none of that thing where, like, a member of the family was like, "Oh yeah, I'll pay for this. Oh, by the way, your great aunt Jean, who you never see, wants to come to the wedding." It was none of that. There was no. It was just a case of we just did it ourselves, and we've done that. Everything that I do, I'm like that. Right. Well, it just means I'm going to have to go without this, and this for the next couple of months. But I'm going to so the fact that he's sitting there, moaning about this, like, you know what? Maybe be more active in your father's company, sit on the fucking board, earn some money, and then get a kid.
Yeah. Or do what they're proposing, which is sell off your seat, because if what's more important to you is adopting this orphan,
100%,
then that's your priority. You sell off your seat, raise this kid, and live a life, and don't worry about the money. Like, yeah, it sucks, but at the end of your life, you can be like, hey, I live by my own terms. Yes, and raise the 100%. Family that I want. Anyway, it's just, it makes Robin so intensely unlikable, and also it makes crazy.
Yeah, it makes Jaden at the same time immensely likable as a character. Yeah.
But
which, once again, why do we have to kill these likable characters and be left with nothing but fucking villainy?
Apparently, Aaron Martin is a big Florence and the Machine fan and decided that there would be no light, no light. and so we go to Dawn, Jaden, and Grace, who are heading out to some bunker.
So this was the bunker that we saw in the flashback in the first episode, which contained the Indiana Jones gold bar where you had to replace it with a bag of sand, otherwise you'd be electrocuted to death and a boulder would crush you. But this island is becoming very lost, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Now we have it, and we need to know what the combination is. But it's all locked up, and it has a keypad, and they're like, "This has a keypad now." And Grace is like, "Yeah, like your dad went all kind of, we need to have a security room." Which you would have thought he would have had after a child had been abducted from his island 25 years before, but that's fine. He's been a bit paranoid. And she's like that.
Other things on his plate.
Yeah, and she's like, with the all the other stuff that I wasn't aware of, like him killing himself and all the rest. Would you believe it? He didn't actually give me the code to unlock the door either. Which, this is Chekhov's keypad. This is going to play something later on.
Also, why? I mean, they're looking for a first aid kit for Jaden. Is the whole reason?
Because apparently they only have one first aid kit in the entire mansion, and it's from the 80s.
Right, but why haul your bleeding son out there if you don't know the combination of the keypad?
You leave him there.
Yeah.
You don't go. You 100% don't drag him out there. So while they're out there, Dawn looks over and she's like, "What the fuck?" And the killer, bold as brass, with witnesses this time who see the killer. So this is unlike every other season where the killer's reveal is, you'll pick off lots of people individually, and then we'll find out later on when we find all the bodies. No. We're going up front with this one, and we'll get into why that is incredibly fucking stupid at the end of this episode. But Don's like, and then they all see so they walk up to him, bold as brass. They walk up to who I'm calling Dr. Death. And as they get close, she's like, "I'm just gonna take this mask right off you." And as she leans towards it, out comes a knife. Huzzah! Like a Ginsu knife right across her arm, which Dawn's like, "What the fuck?" And so she legs it. And then we have Grace and Jaden like, oh shit. So they start running off. And like Dr. Death's chasing after Grace, and almost got Grace. And then Jaden kind of rugby tackles and like the killer over, and then he's like, oh shit. So then he starts running. So the killer's running around with a knife, chasing after Jaden. And because apparently we only have one set that we can kill people in this season, we end up back where fucking our Quint wannabe guy was. We're back down at the dock.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, so, and Jaden runs into this boathouse or whatever.
Yeah, which doesn't have exits, so he basically corners himself.
Yeah, and the killer finds him and just kind of, cracks his head against the wall to knock him out.
Yeah.
And so Dawn, meanwhile, again, the voice of reason, runs into the house being like, there's a fucking killer on the island. We need some help.
Like, there's a bit where she's like, she does a lot of screaming and she's like, where the fuck is everyone? Like,
yeah.
And I'm like, yes, where is everyone? Because wait 1 second, it's red herrings, Obo.
Well, all right.
We're setting up red herrings.
So she calls everybody to go look for him. Vincent, notably not there.
Yes.
Dr. Death, not there.
Yes.
Afra, not there.
Yes.
Who else wasn't there?
Housekeeper's not there.
The housekeeper is not there. No, Dr. Death is there because she's got the croquet mallet.
No, she walks down with them, but she isn't in the room when she's doing the calling.
Okay, yeah, okay, fair enough. So anyway, so this group of miscreants is off to find Jaden, who wakes up and is on a homemade rack in this boathouse. And so he starts screaming. Grace hears that. She runs into the boathouse where she finds him. And then Theo hears that scream. And he's like,
it's the old shed.
It's the old family
literally
shed.
His words. Yeah. It's literally his words. Like it's a Scooby-Doo episode.
Yeah. And so they all rush into this shed where Jaden is tied to these steel cables that are pulling his limbs asunder. Mm-hmm. And as this thing starts to turn, there is that one flashback where David Cronenberg gets the news from Jaden, like, oh yeah, by the way, I got the deal. Like, you need to pay Robin his money. Pay the man his money. Because he's secured this board seat. And David Cronenberg says, I'm proud of you showing your killer instinct.
Yeah.
And then back to the boathouse, or the shed, the old family shed, where
the old family shed.
Jaden is now like pulled apart, like his knee goes, then his arm, then another arm. And
there's a great scene where Liv is beside one of the arms that's being torn out, and her face just gets sprayed.
Yeah,
like,
and again, like the thing that Slasher does right is when it does these scenes, it gets really bloody.
It's all practical.
Gory.
Yeah,
this
was all practical. It was really, really well done.
And then Grace screams, realizing that her son is now dead.
Yeah.
End of episode.
Yep.
So
why? Let me just get something out here. Why is it so stupid to reveal the killer as like there is a killer on the island picking them all off, right? And the big reason behind that is in no way, shape, or form would anyone remain on the island. So if the next episode doesn't start with them trying to get on the boat and get off the island and finding the boat's been destroyed or whatever, then I'm calling bullshit in the whole thing.
Right. But in typical slasher fashion, that will probably happen, but it'll happen like 3/4 of the way through the episode.
Oh, yeah, towards the end when they'll find what's his face is missing. Because no one's asked what happened to the fisherman yet. Like the boat guy.
And also, the killer apparently cleaned all that up because there's no, aside from James like, stepping on his gut.
Yes, stepping on like what looked like a little bit of intestinal tract. That was literally about it. But yeah, like I think it's given away too quickly because there's nothing stopping the group now, like sitting all in the same room together, weaponing themselves up, and like trying to do some comms off the island of some description, unless they've all been, destroyed or whatever. And then at the same time, like there's no conceivable way the Dr. Death character is going to be like that. Well, if we don't conclude this by the end of the weekend, then none of you get the fortune anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just feels like too much of a push. And once again, she's the killer. So, like, so convinced she's the killer. I don't know
I'm
what it is.
more. All right, here's my crazy theory.
The orphan theory is amazing. Like, I'm
All
just
right,
going to put that
but
forward.
let me whip
It's
a little
amazing.
English on
Yeah.
the orphan theory though, because
Uh-huh.
I think she is the person behind the curtain as far as it like orchestrating all the deaths and stuff. But I
Mm-hmm.
think she is working with Vincent.
Oh.
And that like they met in prison or some shit.
Mm-hmm.
And that she is like, oh, I look young enough that I can pretend to be an orphan, so I'm gonna weasel my way into this family, set you up as the brother,
Yeah.
and then what we'll do is bring you back. We'll kill all these other fuckers, and then you take the
Yeah.
money.
It's interesting. It's interesting.
And it's just dumb enough to be true.
It's always 100% dumb enough to be an Aaron Martin idea. Like, like they missed a trick. Like, to me, like the what they should do, and I'm not saying that they haven't. We'll find that. Well, obviously they haven't because Jaden's dead. But what they should have done is a real kind of listen. Our parents are trash, like fucking horrible. Like, let's all us kids, the new generation, band together, get rid of the parents. And then, you know, we have the fortune, but ultimately it's that kind of ruthlessness will breed the next generation to be like their parents. And that would be a really interesting concept. Kind of very kind of, you know, like the Greek gods and the Titans. You know, you overthrow your parents, remove them all, you assume the position of authority, but you just turn it to be just as shitty.
I like hearing you say assume the position.
Yeah, won't be the last time. But you know, to me that kind of feels. But I don't know what it is. Like the way the killer looks, I think it's more the height of the killer. And she, like, the Doctor Death is huge. Like, that is a big woman. Like, she's tall, and I'm now got in my head it's her.
All right. My theory.
I like your theory, though.
We will learn soon.
Did he just pull a motherfucking orphan on me?
Dude, I am absolutely convinced that there is an orphan scenario afoot here.
Oh man, if it is, I'm gonna be so fucking happy. I really, really, there's no end to the tears of joy that will be spilling down my face as I dramatically watch the rest of Slasher. But yeah, so we'll see. That's us, Bo.
Yes,
that is us 1/4 of the way through season 4.
Just like that, 25% of the show is done. So a couple of housekeeping notes here.
Oh,
before we wrap the show up.
Keep the house.
So, just an FYI, we are now on Podbean.
Oh, nice.
So if you are a subscriber via the Podbean, be sure you subscribe to the show there. Still on every other platform, but just, you know, letting folk know that they can follow there as well. And then, yeah, if you're watching this live, the audio version of this will be released next week, and then 2 weeks from now we'll be back to talk about episode 3. But until then, Duncan, where can people find you, and what the hell are you up to aside from all the Gamera box sets? And is it Lindsay? Is that the box set you're on?
Yeah, Lindsay Baker box set's just finished. So that was Severin put that out, and I bought the box set. I chose it to do it. And what I didn't realize is that So Sweet, So Perverse is one of the titles in there, which is also in the 88 Films Italian collection, which I hadn't covered yet, which means I'm covering that real soon, which means that's double reviews of that, which and then the 2 movies after that, like, those movies are particularly confusing in terms of how they were named. So the first movie is Orgasmo. Orgasmo was released in America as Paranoia because the Americans didn't want a movie called Orgasmo to be released. So they called it Paranoia, and then it confused things. Lindsay's second movie, he called Paranoia, which in America you guys called A Quiet Place to Kill. So I know that movie is Paranoia, which I had already covered in the 88 Films Italian collection. And so about 10 minutes in it, I was like, I've fucking seen this. I'm sure I've seen this movie before. And then the final movie, I was like, well, at least I've never seen Knife of Ice. I definitely haven't seen that. And it turns out like 3 minutes in that movie, I was like, I've totally seen this movie. Like, not only have I seen this movie, I screened this on my Cash channel last year. So I chose a box set of movies that I thought I hadn't seen, but turns out I'd seen 2/3. So yeah, that's that box set's been put away though. So quite happy
Wasted
about that.
on your own petard.
Oh, did honestly. Podcast Under the Stairs still doing a ton of different things. There's a Russian roulette franchise retro on Rec coming up, so the full shebang for that one, which will be a ton of fun. Loads of other little bits and bobs for that channel. On the Teapots Collective, we have Where to Begin With, which is kicking back off this week coming. So I'll be last week to anyone listening. We're doing film noir, neo-noir movies for this entire season, 10 episodes. With the first movie, and I can announce it here, being Chinatown, which, I mean, is a no fucking brainer. So Chinatown.
By the way, quick addendum to that. If you haven't listened to or read the book, I listened to the audiobook, but I think it's called The Long Goodbye. Is the book that is about the filming of Chinatown with Robert Evans.
I've never done that. If it's an audio book format, I will do that.
It is. I don't keep going, and I'll verify the title, but it is absolutely worth your time. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it was the first time I've seen Chinatown in a little while, and the reason I picked it as my first movie is that it's interesting because like it was known as a neo noir. But it's 50 years old now, so technically I don't know if we can still class it as a neo-noir or if it's a film noir, but it's either side of that spectrum is one of the finest examples of that particular genre of cinema ever made. So that's the one I'm kicking off with.
The Big Goodbye is the name of the book. The Big Goodbye.
I will add that to my Audible list.
It's basically a not only about Chinatown, but also about the end of that kind of filmmaking. That was happening at the same time, and how Hollywood was shifting away from those kinds of movies. Incredible piece of writing.
I will be checking that out. So that's where to begin with. Chronicle has returned, and bringing different guests on now for every episode. When they pick a European horror movie, they've always wanted to discuss with me. We might see if we can swing Bo onto one of those episodes this year, which would be fun. So yeah, we've got one of them out already. The second one's recording this month, which will be fun because we're doing an Argento movie, so that's always a good time for me. On doing the Nasty, we're continuing through that. That's always a hoot. And then lastly, but not least, we finished Opera Omnia. It's out there. So you can go and check us talk about Mank. It was a ton of fun. Going to miss Bo. But I have a new season in the wings with a new host. It's much shorter for this one before we pick off another big topic. So that'll be great. And if you hadn't seen, there's plenty of movies coming out which will get old hosts back on. So I'll have Watson back on to do In the Earth real soon, because obviously Pete Lee's got, and he's now doing the Meg 2, which means we'll be covering the Meg 2.
Fascinating. Yeah, pick.
Weird. So they obviously know something, and I can't wait to see it. But the other one is Peter Strickland's new movie is debuting, or has debuted actually, at the Berlin Film Festival, and it looks fucking bonkers. So we'll be getting some Richard Glenn Smith back on to discuss some Peter Strickland and his addendum as well. So all that can be found at teapotscast.com or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Great. And as for me, you can also find everything I do at teapotscast.com. No. You can head over to legionpodcast.com.
You are on a lot of episodes, Bo, so that's fair.
Yeah. if you want just enough out of me, go to teapotscast.com. But if you want way too much, then go to legionpodcast.com, where you can find the other shows I do, which is Pick Six Movies with my pal Chad Cooper, where we are talking about Die Hard ripoffs this season.
How is that going, by the way?
Just recorded Cliffhanger And that
Oh,
was a really fun conversation. But we've done Speed 2 already, which is a big
grim.
whiff of a movie.
Yeah,
And yeah,
it's grim.
yeah, it's all just terrible.
I can't wait to check out that cliffhanger one. I've not seen cliffhanger in a long time, but my lasting memory about that one is I kind of adore John Lithgow in it.
He is criminally underused, but he is the
Yeah,
best thing about it for sure.
yeah.
And it's also got a great Michael Rooker moment in it.
Rooker's
And
brilliant in it.
yeah,
Yeah,
so it's like that of all the movies that we've covered. It's not the best of them, but it's up there in terms of just being watchable, if kind of
yeah,
slight.
and getting remade. Like that's currently in,
crazy.
but it's the choice of director that's mind blowing. The director of A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night is directing the Cliffhanger remake,
Oh, great! That might actually
which
be
is
good.
fucking nuts. Like, once again, I don't know how you get there with that. I don't know where
Yeah.
we're like, we need to get her.
That's
So,
crazy.
yeah.
Yeah, but all right. So pick 6 movies. You can hear all of that. You can also check out this show, of course, Duncan and Bo Come Correct. And then everything else I do is under the heading of the Dark Parade. That is a main episode every week, along with a bunch of bonus episodes, including Heart of Horror with Kay Pollock, as we talk about horror films that have to do with like love and relationships and stuff like that. We have yet to record our episode for the Valentine season, but we are going to do that sooner rather than later. Have a good pick for that.
Valentine, obviously.
No, we're gonna talk about one night stands,
Oh,
and
right.
so there is a movie that will be appropriate to that.
Mm-hmm.
Then, of course, What You Watching with Jamie and Bo, where Jamie Sammons now, I keep calling her Jamie Jenkins, comes on to talk about, just recent viewings. It's, as always, just an excuse to plunk a nickel into her and let her go.
Yeah.
And then Found Footage Fool is the other bonus episode there where you can hear me try to make sense of my love of found footage movies and my journey through them. And the next episode I've yet to record, but it'll be coming soon, is all about some folk horror found footage film. And yeah, so there's a trio of those that I'll be talking about. And yeah, and like I said, you can find all that at legionpodcasts.com, or search for The Dark Parade anywhere that you get podcasts, and that'll come up, and you can hear a bunch of stuff with a lot of great guests. And in fact, just tomorrow, I'll be recording with Duncan and Doug Tilley for an upcoming episode. And actually,
it'll be fun. It will be fun.
It's going to be a great conversation.
It'll be a riot. The movie, not so much, but
yeah,
the conversation will be a hoot.
Yeah, well, I've been doing a listener request month, and Doug was like, as soon as he saw that I was doing a listener request, he was like, "How about Science Crazed?" And
Which is his answer to everything, by the way.
Yeah, and I was like, I'll do it, but you're going to come on and talk about it with me. And
I'm only there so he'll stop posting it on my page.
Okay, fair enough. But that is it. Thanks to everybody watching. Thanks to everybody listening. Be sure you are rating and reviewing on whatever channels that you can do such a thing. And come back in 2 weeks for a little bit more of these shenanigans. And the only thing left then for this episode is for me to say goodnight, Duncan.
It's for me to say goodnight, Duncan.
That doesn't even make sense. Ah!